Hey folks, welcome to wasmCloud Wednesday for Wednesday, February 26th. Let me go ahead and share the agenda really quick, and then we will get started. Get everything arranged on the screen. It's all great. You should be able to see my arc window, which is nice and good. At least I think so. Yep, that looks right. So today, I did want to do a little bit of a demo and a discussion around custom interfaces and failures in distributed RPC, which should be a pretty interesting thing to noodle on and talk about. I want to talk a little bit about our team's focus, the wasmCloud team, and how we are going to be pushing towards some big things at KubeCon EU, which is going to be in April, and then talk about some of the some of the maybe more lame demos that we've shown in the previous community calls around like CI and conventional commits and auto-generated release notes and things, and then show like the actual fruits of our labor there. So it should be pretty fun to kind of wrap up the call with that. But for now, why don't we go ahead and get started with a little bit of a demo and a discussion on custom interfaces in wasmCloud. So right now, whenever you start a component in the wasmCloud runtime, anytime there is an interface that's not something like WASI HTTP or WASI IO or wasmCloud messaging or wasmCloud Postgres, these well-known interfaces that we know about, we call it a custom interface. So this is something that you've defined in WIT. It expresses an interface or a contract that you are essentially wanting to either call or implement on your WebAssembly component, somewhere in your application. And wasmCloud doesn't know anything about it. But when you do that at runtime, when you start the component, wasmCloud will basically create this polyfill for you so that when you call that function, instead of the WebAssembly runtime saying, well, I don't know what that function is, so I'm just going to panic, we will attempt to send an invocation over NATs to a component or a capability provider or something that is running and listening and implements the other end of that interface. So this is how custom interfaces are supported today, and it's how you can write your own custom capability providers using an interface where the provider implements that interface. So you can provide that capability to your component, and then you can call those functions in your code. There is a very important piece that we don't currently implement right now, and that's surfacing transport level errors in that distributed RPC call to you. If tried to, let's say you tried to invoke another component using a custom function that you've written, and you're temporarily disconnected from NATs. Now, there's nothing that you need to do as the application developer to compensate for this, but if NATs is down, then we can't send the RPC message. In this case, right now, we will actually panic in the component. The function call will fail. This is represented in different ways in different languages, like trapping or panicking. But we don't actually have a mechanism right now to surface that kind of error to you so that you can handle it and then continue. And this is partially by design. Distributed computing is complicated. We want to live in this world where when you're writing your component, you aren't thinking about load balancing and, different components talking to each other and scaling and whether or not NATS is connected, things like that. But, of course, we can't ignore those aspects of a possibly failing distributed system. So I have a little bit of a demo, more so a proposal on a strategy we could use to address this problem. So let me go ahead and share my whole desktop. We'll go through a couple of different VS Code windows here. But let's take a look at this set of this WIT. So this is our example Hello World component that's been slightly modified. so that I have a custom interface and I have a custom function that I want to be able to call at runtime, which will either that I expect for it to give me a string. So previously, before this proposal, I may have written something like this. So I'm going to call a function at runtime, and it'll get a string back. Like if I'm doing hello world, it may be like the name of the person who's greeting you or whatever. Now, the proposal for this strategy is that in wasmCloud, we can actually distribute or as a part of our well-known WIT interfaces, we can create a structure like this is totally an example. So take the naming with a grain of salt. We can have a record called RPC error. This is like a struct where internally we can have a wasmCloud error, and maybe we could have different variants of this error, kind of like an error code, but surfacing different possible places where the invocation could fail, right? It could fail as a part of the transport. It could fail as a part of wRPC. These are kind of the same things. Maybe it fails because of something that you didn't know about. It's not really in your control on the wasmCloud side. Like a link didn't exist, so you haven't actually, or an operator hasn't given permission for your component to invoke the other end of this custom interface. We can have a well-known the important thing here is that we can have a well-known type that we support that custom interfaces can then implement functions with any any return type, any number of arguments, as long as they fit the exact structure of a result with any internal type and returning the error type as an RPC error, this custom error type that we know about, we can actually surface wasmCloud like platform level errors to the component user. So inside of this component, here's an example of what the code would look like. As a part of handling as a part of handling the HTTP request, I will essentially call my custom function. Today, this either works and I will get a string back, or it will panic and the execution of my component will stop right here. Your HTTP request will hang, things like that. But with this implementation, what we can do is use, any component languages like error handling and say, hey, if this was okay, then I can return a response like, okay, hello from Rust or Bob or whatever. Now, if there's an error, we can actually return well, normally you'd want to return a 500. I'm returning a 200 because of a test, but it's a little easier to ration with here. You can return a 500 error response and say, hey, I wasn't able to call this other microservice, this other function that I depend on because it wasn't running or I was disconnected or things like that. So, really, that's a long-winded spiel of just getting to the point where this custom interface function now can surface platform level errors that we wouldn't be able to handle previously. Things that happen um, outside of the WebAssembly function call context. So let me go ahead and show you what this looks like. Whoops, I was already running. Let me go ahead and show you what this looks like. So I'm going to start my component right now, or sorry, I'm going to start a wasmCloud host, and this is going to enable the built-in HTTP server. That's what I'm going to use for my capability provider, and sets the max execution time of a component to 1 second. So if it's executing for, or if we do function calls and it takes longer than a second, then we will kind of time that out, and you'll see why in a second. So I have lots of debug logs. I will be clear that this is essentially a user experience proposal more so than a feature that's ready to land right now. But I'd rather talk about it first. So you'll notice something really interesting here where this is actually an error case that we couldn't handle before. So let me set the stage a little bit better. I have a single application, which is just Rust Hello World. And in this app, I'm taking in HTTP requests, but I don't actually have a link or any other component that's implementing this custom call. So when I make the RPC call at runtime, it's not going to resolve to anything. There is no target. So, previously this would panic. Now, the super cool thing that I can do here is send a request, and the response that I get back is essentially my error handling response in the component saying, it's printing the whole thing out. But the feedback that the component gets is, hey, you actually don't have a link to be able to invoke this function. You can't call this, you cannot call this instance, you're not allowed to. So what I could actually do here, if I know as a component developer that this custom interface may fail, I can have backup plans. I can handle that and then I can move on. Now there's a variety of scenarios that we can actually catch with this, which is awesome. One is that, this link doesn't exist, so I didn't define that. I wasn't allowed to talk to that entity. I can handle that. I can also handle the scenario where I have a link, so I am allowed to talk to this other component, this other function, but it's not running. And in that case, right now, what you would essentially see is the same behavior. We would try to invoke a component, but you would not be able to actually handle the error that it wasn't running. And, this is totally just the error that comes back from the current handling process, failed to flush outgoing stream. But knowing this about our component invocate, like our distributed invocation process, we know that if we're failing to flush the outgoing stream, like to send arguments to a target, that it's probably not running or not connected or not listening. So I'd like to, update this error, but you can now in your component here, you would be able to, match against an error case and say, okay, if there was no target for this dependency or this function, was not running when I tried to call it, maybe I try again, or maybe I wait, half a second, try again, exponential back off, what have you. There is another case that we can actually catch with this, which is really cool, where even if so right now I'm using the built-in HTTP server, which does not transmit the HTTP request over NATs. I can actually quit NATs entirely. You can see kind of in the bottom that wasmCloud is going to keep trying to reconnect to NATs. And I can try to curl this. And after a second, which is the timeout, we will return the error that transmitting data has timed out. And that's because when we called this function, went for a second, totally timed out because we couldn't connect to NATs, and then we can return that result back to the caller again. So this is a pretty resilient. I think this would go a long way to making custom interfaces really resilient on the wasmCloud side. We can bring back up NATs and wasmCloud will reconnect and all that fun stuff. But really, I think the reason why we need this today is if a custom interface fails for reasons that are outside of its standard interface, such as RPC, then we really want to be able to surface that information to the component at least to be able to handle that, try again, things like that. I have a couple of, I guess I'll just mention it. The one other note and the important design piece here is that something that we want to make sure that we preserve with this feature is the ability to compose components together, not just with wasmCloud, but with the WebAssembly composition tooling or with Wasm Tools Compose. We really want to be able to preserve that, and we don't want this to be so tightly tied to running in a Wasm Cloud environment per se. Now, if you're running your own, if you're making your own custom interface and you want to handle RPC errors, then you probably are running it in wasmCloud. But we don't want to preclude you from optimizing your components later by composing them together. And this will actually work totally fine with that. So across the component boundary, essentially this result of string RPC error or this result of T RPC error isn't going to really be anything. It's just going to be, immediately unwrapped, or when you compose these things together, you would just always return the OK result. This RPC error would essentially only get surfaced when you are running the component in wasmCloud and there was a problem during the actual invocation process. Um, yeah, so that was one important design consideration there. So this is totally a demo that is like homegrown, freshly wrote code meant to spur some discussion or thoughts. Do folks have any other any questions, comments, things that they'd like to see out of the custom interface implementation that we have in Wasm Cloud that we should discuss? Alrighty, that sounds good. Well, I know that, this may be one of them quiet community calls. This is definitely going to come up again. It will likely be Colin. Um, Go ahead if you had. Oh, I can't hear you for
Just
some.
trying to ease your
Oh yeah,
solipsism.
yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, this isn't an open PR. It's not really getting merged in. I think immediately I'd really like to talk this over with Roman on the Wasm Cloud wRPC side, just to see if this belongs in Wasm Cloud. This may belong as a part of wRPC, something that is, kind of well known and handled there. I want to make sure that we're following all the best practices there. And this wouldn't I guess the only other thing to mention is that Wasm Cloud being able to handle this like special, well-known RPC error, you essentially opt into this in your custom interface by making it the error variant in your result. If you didn't do that, if you just had a custom interface that returns a string, that's totally fine. Like um, you can continue to work with the custom interface support as it works today. So, thankfully, WebAssembly is pretty flexible with that. So we can kind of add this at any time without breaking previous workflows. All right. Well, I think if there's nothing else there, then I'll probably be talking this over, be mulling, throwing some of these ideas around with in the Wasm Cloud Slack over the coming week or two, just to get some extra feedback, maybe tease out some example use cases and things like that. This would be really useful for things like maybe even the Wasm Cloud. We could even try it on like the Wasm Cloud Postgres interface or something like that to catch RPC errors, which would be pretty interesting. But probably more to come here. We'll talk about this one again before it lands. All right. Well, then we can go ahead and move on. I know that I had just two fairly quick discussion items for the rest of the call today. One of them is a call out that KubeCon EU 2025 is coming up probably really fast. It is almost March, and that happens like the first week of April, so kind of wild.
And
I
there's
pulled it
Wasm
up.
IO right before it too. But
Wasm IO.
the week
No,
before, just, if you want to come
you're right.
in
Colin, you gonna
Barcelona.
be there?
Well, I'm going to be there. Bailey's on the thing, but I don't know if she's going. I don't know if I want to speak out of turn. I'm not going to speak for Bailey. She's also on the speaker list. Or at least she
Okay.
was last time I checked.
Yeah, yeah. We got a ton of stuff. I haven't actually looked through this schedule yet, but doing a quick
Luke's
browse.
gonna
I
be
mean,
there.
I can't.
I'm gonna be
Oscar's
talking.
gonna be there.
I'm
Yeah,
talking.
Liam and Bailey.
Bailey
Look
and
at that.
Bailey and or Liam will be talking.
Yeah,
I'll be talking. So yeah,
yeah. wasmIO in Barcelona, which would be great. I don't think I'm going to to wasmIO, but I will be at KubeCon. I can't search this session list for Wasm because,
it's
well,
all Wasm.
everything comes up. But on the KubeCon list, there is a ton of stuff on the Wasm front, which is exciting. Everywhere from like tag runtime efforts in the CNCF, which Taylor will be on and talking about. Was Am I Right or Was Am I Wrong? My favorite talk title that has come across this year. It is going to be fun again with Taylor. I'll be talking a little bit about wasmCloud and our journey to WebAssembly standards, which should be fun. It's the overall retrospective on wasmCloud as a project. Should be a good one. Liam will be there talking, Jonas and Colin talking about Spiffy and workload identity for WebAssembly workloads. So that's pretty cool, very topical. Um, yeah, so tons of stuff coming up here. The real call out, there's two real call outs, I guess. One, if you're going to be in Barcelona slash London, please let us know because we'll be there and would love to come grab a coffee, beer, grab a high five, whatever. You should come by the booth, come hang out. It's always great to meet people in person. And since we are coming up on kind of the last month before the conference, I think it's pretty likely that we are going to be really busy. So in the next coming weeks, the Wasm Cloud community meetings may be maybe a little bit shorter, or some of the demos might be a little quicker, maybe little previews of our talks and things like that. But this is a general call for help is maybe the wrong word. But if you all are working on things and want to fill out the demo slot in the Wasm Cloud community meeting, that will always be appreciated. As a reminder, everybody is welcome to demo, so it should be good. Is there anything else Bailey, Lachlan, anything else that I'm missing on the conference front that I should mention?
I just want to give a shout that we can also play video recordings if you want a demo, but this time slot doesn't work for you. Thinking of folks like Ahmed who are just awesome, and have made lots of really cool things. Would love to highlight you. On the conference front, I don't think so. Although I guess I've seen Luke's slides for his WASM.io talk. Pretty excited. It's a classic Luke presentation, the insert meme there, but it works. It's really good. So yeah.
That's just shorthand for you need to watch it again after he gives it. For me, at least that's how I interpret that. In a good way. It's so pithy.
Watch 5 more times. Sit in a nice chair. Yeah, nice. Um, yeah, we gotta get back into doing like live streams at the conferences. It's pretty fun. Um, of course we'll do the Wasm Cloud community meeting there, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that's always fun and short usually, unless people here don't want it to be.
Yeah. Nah, we're always gonna do it. Okay, then that is probably all on the conference front, but just a heads up, we'll probably do like weekly callouts as we normally do. But should be quite a busy time, so yay. Okay. Other than that, the only other thing that I wanted to show off a little bit is I'm not sure if you all have submitted PRs into Wasm Cloud over the last week or so. But all of the efforts that we went through to kind of update our labeling process have landed and are in main in a super cool fashion. Sorry, Aditya, to just pull yours out of nowhere, but it had two things, so it's pretty cool. Essentially, what we're doing now is when you create a pull request into the Wasm Cloud repo, the our conventional commit bot is parsing the commit message to make sure that it's conventional. This is something we do across the entire repository, and we enforce this. You all have been awesome for helping us do that as well. So Aditya comes in and makes a commit and says, "Hey, this is a feature add for the host, adding runtime support for the cron job provider." Nice. We have this. The GitHub Actions bot can parse this and say, hey, the scope is wasmCloud, and this is a feature. And this is really nice just at a bird's eye view for us maintainers who are reviewing things. Like we know now what the pull request is about. We know the, kind of pull request. We can also know, here's one from Victor, for example. We can also know if it contains a breaking change, which of course this is elective, something that you have to put into your commit message. So it's important to show rigor there. But it can be important for us to know when we need to do releases. What is cool about this is once these PRs merge and we cut releases, like for example, the 1.6.2 release notes, we now have a formatted release note section that has, what's changed at the top or whatever. But what's auto-generated by GitHub now is a section for new features, a section for bug fixes, and then all other changes kind of roll up under a more bulk section here at the bottom. If there are any breaking changes, that actually comes all the way up to the top. There haven't been any, this is a patch release. So that'll be good for keeping us honest. But essentially, that gives us a really nice view into what changed in a release. And that is all driven by the labeler. And then also this release.yaml, which is GitHub's GitHub actually uses this whenever you generate release notes for a repository to, based on labels of a pull request, stick them under different categories. So super cool. We are going to be ignoring things like CI changes in our release notes and no dependabot version bumps and things. So it should just generally result in a lot cleaner release notes. So all of that is coming to a head. The only thing that I think we need to keep an eye out for is the title of the pull request. I kept this in as to make a full example of myself. You can see under new features, this is really weird. Why is there a chore prepare wash release by myself in here? And that is because in this pull request, I had a bunch of different commits. 3 of them were like just regular version bumps, and the other one was a feature where I said, hey, upgrading these things, upgrading these versions. So I think this is a lesson to myself and maybe others as well, that the title of the pull request is going to be really important in our generated release notes. So, here I would probably would have altered my commit just to make them all chores, but yeah, this should be really helpful for just general parsing of release notes by human, regular people. Yeah, so this should happen automatically for our releases from now on. There's not really any, happy to take any feedback on this process or the release notes, or if there's anything you'd like to see out of it. But generally, it's just a heads up that this should be a little bit better. Do folks have any questions or comments on that one? Nice. All right. Well, we kind of rolled through the agenda pretty quickly today, but that's okay. We had had a fun time. I had a fun time talking to you, talking to everybody here today. Now we have a lot of extra, time though. Is there anything that folks wanted to bring up from the wasmCloud side, questions that they had, things in the broader WebAssembly ecosystem that they wanted to discuss? Yeah, we got some free time. So Masood, go for it.
Hi, Brooke. Question about internal and external providers. Like how that differentiation is made. Like let's say both in the manifest as well as by the host. That you're referring to an internal provider and not expecting an external provider.
Are you saying like when my demo used the built-in HTTP server versus the
That's
um
correct.
okay. Yeah. So I really like the way that this determination is made now. The only we actually treat the built-in providers and well, you may or may not know, we just have two for messaging and HTTP server. But we treat them the exact same as the as discrete or binary capability providers. The only difference is the image reference. So instead of
Ah,
referring to the GHCR, wasmCloud, HTTP server here, we refer to this special syntax as wasmCloud plus built-in.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great question, and just to
No,
just
because I want to start on that HTTP client, and I was asking myself, how can I test this thing?
yeah, yeah. So, that's great. I'm glad to hear that that work is kind of starting and going forward. But yeah, I would recommend just following the same convention and doing this for HTTP client. I will have to see. Nope, that's in the test. Um, that is also in the test. If you look for this built-in syntax, yeah, here it is.
Oh, I know what to look for now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is kind of how we've been doing it. And then the important thing is just configuration matching up one to one, so that there really is no difference between it. But sweet. Great question. Colin.
Yeah, there has been a lot of work that's been done on the W standard, and I know in the past we've talked about, especially around HTTP, it's actually very useful now. And I'm even going to talk about it in Barcelona a little bit. But I didn't know, I know we can use it in wasmCloud, but I don't know if we want to update examples to use it, or we want to wait for request or request, or however you're supposed to pronounce request with a W inside of it. I don't know. I just prefer for thought or whatever. And let me just see. Yes, that crate.
Okay. Yeah, WSTD or wstd or
It's kind of
um
like request on the issue that you filed with request, Brooks. People have mentioned talked about it a little bit.
yeah, I've gone back and forth on that one. Just to give you, I guess, an update on where that work is. I haven't really been able to find the time to go back and update that request PR. I think
Request.
request. I think it was uh good, if not maybe a little misguided, because it was basically a synchronous implementation, but a little mixed in with the asynchronous bits of the request library. So there was definitely definitely need to change that PR to make it fit into the crate uh more better, more properly.
There's yeah,
um
I mean within the last few weeks, work's been done on the W that you would probably want to use in
yeah,
your
yeah.
request would want to use.
I'm interested to check. I actually haven't gotten a chance to play around with a lot of the wstd stuff, especially around HTTP. So I'd be pretty interested to play around with it, um, just to see how it feels to use it for a component, to just run in Wasm Cloud straight up. And it could be the underpinning of requests too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that the
I can send you
maintainers of
look
the
at the
crate would
C2
be
P. I've made a bunch of recent PRs in the last week using it.
okay.
So
Cool.
in
Um,
C2PA.
but yeah, obligatory if it
C2PA
uses,
reference.
yeah.
I don't really, I'm not a self-promoter, but all I've done is promote my talks and the things I've done. So
Oh no,
that's on YouTube. So I think I'm in the right place. Please like and subscribe.
I was saying obligatory because I was gonna say, hey, of course, if it supports WASI HTTP, it works in Wasm Cloud, pew pew. So I was gonna self-promote. So I think
Yes,
we're
also.
we're all about that here. Like, comment, and subscribe. Um, yeah, so I think that I'd love to get a couple examples going. I think maybe the sample WASI HTTP Rust thing that Bailey just sent probably just works out of the box, but would be really cool to it does. Nice. Okay, great. Be really
And
cool
it
to
uses
start
WC.
changing
There we
some of
go.
our examples. Yeah,
We're on the
to
same
use
page.
that. Hmm.
Same page.
For
Oh no, it
sure.
definitely works out of the box. I just was the examples, and then Bailey put up an example. So
Mhm. Yeah. Bailey, I'm not sure if you had more on that topic or if you were queuing up another thing, but
Yep. Yeah, that basically what I was going to call out is that within the Bytecode Alliance, we've been working on building out some more canonical examples. Yash, who's also the creator of wstd crate, so unsurprisingly, he owns this Rust WASI HTTP example. It's got a lot of other goodies in there that I think is really worth looking at, like how to have a generic approach for building your OCI images for your WebAssembly components. And then that whole workflow is sort of integrated in if you use that template. And it also has signing built into it as well. So I think there's, lots of things. Oh, and a dev container. Like there's so much stuff in that one that if you haven't seen it, please do. And if you have a favorite language that we haven't yet represented in the Bytecode Alliance, which is all of the other ones, please come and talk to me, and SigDocs would like a word because we want to expand that suite out. So thank you.
spreading the good word. Um, nice. Yeah, Aditya, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey Brooks. So as you know, I've been working on the cron job provider, and I was just wondering what the chronology would be for getting the bit package release as a tag and the actual provider getting implemented. I just wanted to know which comes first, you know.
Yeah, I think what you should be able to do is just implement the capability provider using the local like your local implementation of the cron capability. So this is what we did for Postgres as well, which is basically a custom interface like cron. You can implement the capability provider, should be able to be tested in the repo just fine with that. And then once the PR merges, which we can help to, you might want to look at the Postgres release wit action for inspiration. But once essentially all of this gets merged, we can release the wit and the provider basically at the same time. That's what that's what I would think at least. You should be able to do it all to implement the provider, prove it out, and then we can release the wit once that all lands. Does that make sense? Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, it does make sense. I was just taking a look at secrets workflow as well, and I'm seeing that it was done after it was implemented. So yeah, I'll get it working locally and do the rest.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I saw that, well, I guess I pulled it up a little earlier, but I saw that capability provider or the cron job provider PR is in draft. So just um, let us know whenever you want us to take a look.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sweet. Um, all right, folks. Any other topics? All righty. Well, hey, we did pretty good, right? We did the thing. It was great. Thanks everybody for coming to the wasmCloud community call today. Should be it'll be very hard to wait a whole week before the next one, but we'll all find a way where we'll do some more demos, some more discussions, and talk more about fun WebAssembly things. So thanks everybody. We will see you next time.